Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Haunted Vermont. My name is Paul Doski, and joining me is none other than Seth Breedlove himself from Small Town Monster. Seth, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's good to always chat with you, man. I hope last time, which was almost about like a year ago when we were talking about the law or the law hunt Bigfoot.
hmm
I kind of made that comment, and then after I kind of said the comment, I was just like, "Oh my God, he probably feels like I just personally attacked him."
No, no, I
So
don't even remember the comment. If that if that tells you anything, I
I
said.
re-listened to it today at work, and the comment was involving something stupid, and then as it left my mouth, it was just like, "Oh crap, he probably just found it personal or something." And I'm
No,
like,
you know how that always goes, dude. People that are actually like caring about the feelings of others, we beat ourselves up over that stuff more than the people that actually take it in. Like 9 times out of 10, the person that you're talking to doesn't even have the same thought in their head that you do. Like if that's the way I always am. Anytime I talk to anybody, I'm always like, after the fact, I replay the conversation in my head and think of what an idiot I am. Like,
I feel
no,
more than
I
that
don't even know
every
what you're
day.
talking about. So no worries at all.
Okay. Yeah, I can't exactly remember, but I just remember at it as it left my mouth. Anyway, if people want to check out what I'm talking about, go back to that episode. Yeah. Anyway, so
Was
Steph,
that a year ago for real though? Man, you're right.
yeah,
Because we were filming was that May or June that we were shooting last year
you
out
guys
there?
were in Vermont of June. I
Okay.
don't know when you actually got in Vermont. I just know it was
A
late
year.
June.
Yeah, that's a year. That's coming up on a year. That's crazy.
Yeah, dude, time flies, I feel like.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the law hunt Bigfoot around maybe July, and I set it up for August or something, but whatever. It is
Mhm.
what it is. But yeah, that's where the conversation was. But I just hate that sometimes because, like, I know, and you can vouch too, we are our own, like, worst critics.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I kind of beat myself up when I watched this documentary that we're going to be talking about a little bit about. But I'd like to know more of like the behind the scenes in this case, Steph, not just the documentary, if that's okay with you. So my little note that I have here, some fun ones, thanks to your Vermontan edition podcast episode from Monsteropolis, which
Mhm.
was fun. So let's get started with that. Back when you guys recorded that, and this is probably gonna have to really kick in some of your memories, considering it's been
This is going to
a
be
year
interesting.
ago.
This is going to be
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm gonna first apologize if you do have to dig far backward. But anyway, here we go. Let's see what we can get you to remember.
Yeah.
When you were driving through, I don't know if it was driving through or driving up to Vermont.
Mhm.
Maybe driving up to Vermont. Well, I'll just say for this example is you were talking about how you felt it was familiar to you, and I
Mhm.
think it was because you were heading to Maine, but then the conversation kind of tilted to some place like Moose Caboose, stopping to get fudge for
Yeah.
Heather because it was like sugar free or something.
Yeah.
And what else was there? There was something else,
Well, that
but
was weird. That was weird because we had so the way that went is when we were filming on the Trail of UFOs back in 20, was it 20? It must have been 2019 because UFOs came out during COVID and that was 2020. I think it's 2019 we were filming on the Trail of UFOs there.
the
It might
first
be.
one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the original series. We filmed and that was a wild shoot anyway. Like we were filming in places and later I found out like we had been filming in these locations where my mom and dad had honeymooned like 50 some years prior. There's a photo of me sitting in a spot that's exactly the same spot my mom, I have a photo of my mom sitting and stuff like that. But on our way back from that on the Trail of UFO shoot, we had taken all these back roads coming back from New Hampshire, and
Okay.
we ended up driving south and down through Vermont and into New York, and we had stopped at this little place. I can't remember the name of the spot, but I remember the Moose Caboose too. That's a little further down the road. But we stopped at this little spot and got fudge or something like that. Everyone wanted food from Vermont, and so we stopped and got food, and then yeah, on the drive up to Vermont to film Bennington, we just wound up on the same road and just in the same exact area. And I kept saying like this I feel like I've been here before. And then we hit this like 4-way stop, and right across the street was this little place that we had stopped at years prior. And it was a fun little accident, that it was so random because you're in the middle of nowhere. It was on a 2-lane road. It wasn't like we were on a highway somewhere. So I mean, maybe that's common in Vermont though. Vermont, one thing about Vermont that I thought was funny is it really reminded me strongly of West Virginia. The way the land flows and the little like almost like hollers, it just the back roads and all that stuff. It really reminded me of West Virginia at times, and I wasn't expecting that because I haven't spent a lot of time in Vermont.
Yeah, I think I remember you saying that in our last conversation. Like this was your first time to really appreciate Vermont as like this was a way for you to actually drive around the state versus just driving through it.
Yeah, and it's funny, like we're talking about it, and it is making me nostalgic because that was a very that shoot was a lot of work, but it was also really chill. Like chill in the fact that like the girls wanted to run the interviews, and the interviews are the most stressful part of the shoots for me. And so the girls were like, "No, we got this." And so I was running around the state with Zach getting B-roll for the most part, other than the day that we did the decoded episodes with John Wilk and Dave McCullough, and then with
Steve and Mike.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it was a lot of time for me to drive around and experience the state that I'd never experienced it. Outside,
right.
Yeah, outside of like getting lost outside of Whitehall and accidentally driving into Vermont, like I just hadn't been there much.
Yeah, it can be a fun little accident at times. I will say for sure. Like I know sometimes when I go back to like my Bennington area, sometimes this will go into the next segment real quick too, because it's funny you talked about it, and I got a story for you because I don't know if anybody shared it with you that I've talked to about it. So it's not here. First off, apology to the listeners, but if Seth doesn't know this, it works well. It works well. But in that chat too, you all were talking about this weird time lapse and like a possible vortex that was going on in Bennington where you guys kept driving and nothing seemed to end basically. So I guess first of all, how did you feel about that? Because when did you really start to take notice that there was something odd going on?
It was the first day that Zach and I were filming B-roll, and I can't remember if that was like the second or third day of the shoot, but I think it was just the second full day of the shoot. I think it was, or the first full day. Actually, the first full day of the shoot, I think, is the day that Zach and I went out and were filming B-roll, and we were going. We were just kind of driving around the Bennington area, and then we decided to hit this like big mountain of some sort near there that we could drive to the top of. And so we drove out there and drove to the top of this mountain, and on the drive there, everything was normal. It just seemed like it took, an hour or something like that to get there and get up to the top of the mountain. But on the way back, it just felt like it took forever. It was like Zach and I it got to the point where we're like driving, and I would say it feels like 3 hours have passed, and I would look at the clock and 5 minutes had passed, and it just kept happening. And Zach kept noticing it too. And it was like that the entire time we were there. Like anytime we had to go somewhere. And apparently this is a thing. Like apparently a lot of out of staters feel this way. there's theories. There's a lot of theories about why this is online. Some people theorize it has something to do with all with like the number of back roads and people not used to driving on back roads. But I grew up in rural Ohio, so like we drove around back roads for fun here, and so it's not that. And it's very unique to that state. I haven't ever experienced that in any other state that I can recall, especially to share that experience with someone else, because it wasn't just Zach either. As the week went on, anytime I was talking to Alex or Aaron or Courtney and Heather, they all had the same, experience. Oh gosh, got a potential spam call.
You gotta love those.
Yeah. I have everything off, so I'm not even sure how they called through. But yeah, it was all of us. The whole crew felt that way. Like we were in some sort of time vortex or something. It was very odd, and I've never experienced anything like it. I kind of hope I don't again. Like even a really good example is we actually drove up Glastonbury Mountain. So there's a road that goes off not too far down from the Airbnb, and we actually managed to take it pretty far actually onto Glastonbury. We eventually were on Glastonbury Mountain, and then we came to a like they had one of those gates up.
Yep.
You couldn't go beyond it. We were on that drive for 3.5 hours, and it felt like we were in the car for 2 days. Like it was this nonstop, endless. I mean, it almost reminded me of like Blair Witch Project or something. You know how they talk about like,
totally
time passing in a weird way. There's something to it. I don't know if it's anything supernatural or paranormal. I would assume it's just some sort of, there's something going on there that makes time feel like it's passing slowly or slowly to me at least. It was very unique, and it was it would have been one thing if it was just me that was experiencing it, but the fact that everybody else on the crew kept mentioning it too, and then we would ask people about it. I remember asking Mike and Steve if they knew what I was talking about, if they had ever experienced it, and they didn't seem to really get what I was talking about. So maybe it is just like an outsider thing where we're from further toward the Midwest, and because of that, we're not used to something in the air.
Well,
or it was like Sasquatch. It's one or the other.
Oh boy, here we go with that vortex. A possibility. So let's see, where do I want to dig on this real quick? Were you going up a mountain to maybe called Bald Mountain? Were you around that general area? Unless Bald Mountain is more Manchester.
I can't remember. You pay to go. You have to pay at a gate. It's owned by by these Catholic people. There's like an odd sort of almost creepy, vaguely cult-like museum at the top of the mountain where there's some sort of museum to this man who I didn't really get the whole story. I'm not Catholic, so I didn't really get into it, but like there was something about this guy that owned the mountain. It was a private business, and we had to pay to go up it. Yeah.
No, I'm just curious because one thing I'll just say real quick is in the documentary. I don't know if you have the answer to this. I'm still trying to figure out how this one got into the thing. But somewhere in the documentary, there's like a flashback, one of those like background images thing, where you show Shirley Jackson's "The Missing Girl" short story, little clip thing.
Okay.
Now, what I find interesting about that short story, because I finally found a copy of it and I read it myself. And I found it fascinating because to me personally, The Missing Girl was not about Paula Weldon. To me, it was about this other missing girl that went missing around November of 1950, I believe.
Okay.
And what happened with her was she was trying to hitchhike at the age of 16 years old. She was
Mhm.
trying to go from uh I'm trying to remember how you pronounce the town again, Bonneville or something maybe, and she was trying to get to Manchester Center. So she was trying to hitchhike from there. Well, from there, that's where she supposedly disappeared.
Mhm.
And so the idea of in the documentary, because I know a few people have mentioned it, which is they have heard where the triangle actually expands into New York.
Yeah.
So if you dig deep into this quote missing girl that was 16 at the time, her
Mhm.
name, by the way, was Martha Jeanette Jones,
Mhm.
and she ended up getting picked up by these couple from New York
Hmm.
and was brought somewhere, and basically later on, like a month later, they found this missing girl, and
Mhm.
she was found in West Virginia, but she was a waitress at a restaurant under a different name. So she changed her complete name.
Yeah.
A lot of people actually don't know that. A lot of people actually don't even realize that she was actually found. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to share that piece of information. But it makes me wonder, though, um, if that's why people think maybe New York, because maybe they heard about these people that did, in fact, pick her up when she was hitchhiking, and they were from New York. I forgot what part of New York they said they were from, but it was like way in the deep, like New York, maybe around like Buffalo or something. So pretty far.
Yeah. Well, the thing about the triangle that I found funny is that even Citro, even Joseph Citro, couldn't definitively define for me what where like the boundaries of this triangle are. Um, and we kept coming back to that. Like anyone I asked, they were like, "Well, it's like kind of here and it's kind of there, but like no one knows." Uh, which I find odd. Because if like it's not odd for definitive boundaries to not be explicitly stated. Like in Ohio, we have the Sasquatch Triangle, and if you ask Don Keating what the boundaries are, he's going to say
Right,
something
right.
completely different from like what Mark DeWorth is going to tell me about the boundaries. But it was so odd to me that like there was such a range of dimensions to this triangle that we had people telling us it ran into Maine. Like we had, we had people saying it started like hundreds of miles to the north and ran all the way to the coast in the bottom corner. And if you look online, that kind of stuff is really prevalent. Like it is I don't know that I've covered a story before. I'm just trying to think if we've covered a story that was this sort of all over the place as far as what is fact and what is fiction and what is just folklore. Not just folklore, I'm not demeaning folklore, but what is folklore and what's legend and what people have created entirely out of whole cloth. And you just can't, it's a very difficult story to nail down. One thing that I thought was kind of funny about it too was like, I mean, this is kind of getting off track though. You were asking about the missing girl aspect of it, but the thing I thought was interesting is we just couldn't find UFO witnesses, like none. Like we could not find UFO people. We couldn't find people that could say, "I've seen a UFO here. I've experienced UFOs here." Um, and for a place that is so tied to UFOs, especially online, I just find that very curious. And what's funny is like in the weeks leading up to the movie coming out, and even now, every single day I get a Google notification about stories going up online about Bennington Triangle. And what happens is whenever we work on a movie, I set up a Google notification for the title of the movie, right?
Hmm.
Well, this one I just set up as Bennington Triangle. But like it turns out everyone and their mother is making like TikToks and YouTube shorts and stuff about the Bennington Triangle, and almost none of it is based on anything. Like most of it is really just sort of echoing there were these missing people. This is there's always this vague proclamation the Bennington Triangle is a place known for UFOs, ghosts, Bigfoot, and then they'll go down this laundry list of stuff, but they can't give references for why it's known for those things. And that's always a red flag to me, because it's like, well, you got to have some sort of, explicit history of this stuff if you're going to make these big proclamations. And in this case, it's like I can definitely find a Bigfoot history there, like, and there's certainly a haunted history, but UFOs I don't see. I was having a heck of a time like trying to find any kind of UFO connection, and and end of the day, the missing people stuff is weird, but not a lot, but some of those missing persons cases are pretty explainable too.
Totally.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still fascinating. I still love tracking how these stories become sort of what they are, in the popular culture. It's interesting with Bennington how muddy the waters are as to where half this stuff even originated, and you live over there, like or up there, you have to have your own theories as to where this whole thing originated. I'd be curious to hear what your theories are.
It's hard, man. Like, mainly from what I remember hearing about all this, it kind of started from a book. Now I gotta find the name of that title of the book. It's by a guy, Tyler Rich, I think.
Okay.
He had a book that I am trying to goddamn find now. Where he was talking about the ghost town of Glastonbury. Basically, I think that might actually be what it is called. But like Glastonbury Ghost Town or something like that, I believe is the damn name of the book. Anyway, it kind of started from there, because the guy kind of filled you in on like the history of Glastonbury. I mean, and he kind of took like the whole mystery surrounding it, and he kind of delved into the red coat phenomena, which he thinks is a load of crud. I think, as I remember,
Agreed.
the author.
I mean, I do too. Like, that's one where, do you think the same thing? Or I couldn't find references to the red coat beyond
the newspapers.
Yeah.
I can only find anything regarding red on two people, and that was Paula Weldon.
Yeah, Paula.
And Paul Jepson. Those are the only two now that I can only find reference that were actually, in fact, wearing red. Here's the title real quick. It's so the author is Tyler Rich, if I'm pronouncing his last name right. It's RESCH for anybody that wants to look this guy up. And the name of the book is called Glastonbury, The History of a Vermont Ghost Town.
Yeah.
I can't remember though if it was his book or Joseph Citro's Passing Strange, or maybe Unsolved Mysteries or something. But somewhere I heard about this story where these hikers were up in Glastonbury that were trying to hike up the mountain, and as they were hiking up, these like strange lights started to float around the tree lines, and all of a sudden started to come toward them. But as they were watching and these lights were going toward them, they probably first thought like like what happened with you guys when you guys were out doing the Sasquatch on Earth, that then went into a what you would call it, a short video, I think is what you call it. the UAPs of the force, Phantom Lights.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they were probably thinking the same thing, that it's these people with a headlight or flashlight, and I'm just watching my cat because he's like trying to climb shit. So anyway, so I just remember hearing about this, but as soon as these hikers saw that there was nobody holding this light, that freaked them out to the point where they turned around and ran off the mountain.
Yeah.
I actually have a coworker that has witnessed these strange balls of lights that I did try to have Heather reach out to, but no avail apparently. So I don't know what happened with that,
Yeah.
but her story was pretty much in a nutshell is she went camping with some friends in Glastonbury, and during the night they saw these strange lights that were like, dancing, and almost as if they were headlights or headlamps, I mean,
Mhm.
or some sort of flashlight, because they were bobbing up and down and this and that. Well, that's when they finally realized that they weren't being held by anybody or anything, and they just kind of watched them. But it didn't spook them to go off the mountain, but they just kind of watched them, and it was like a glow of a white light, basically, from what I can remember her story.
Yeah.
But as far as that, though, the nutshell of this whole Bennington Triangle as a whole, man. I mean, I don't know. I almost feel like with some of the backstory that you hear about the old town, especially with the lumber yard and the old owner of the lumber yard before he sold it, because I think did you ever get a name by the chance of the old lumberyard owner? His name was John Harbor from like 1890.
No. No. I mean, the fact is too on this one, a lot of the work on this was collaborative between Heather, myself, Aaron, and Santino, because Santino actually edited the movie. So to get a full picture of the story, you'd have to talk to all four of us at once.
Gotcha.
Because it was an odd edit for me. Typically I like to be able to dive headfirst into these, but last year a lot of my attention was diverted between editing the YouTube stuff we were doing and then editing Kinderhook. So yeah, no, I mean, I don't remember. Also, it's been a year since I edited it, so it's a lot of the details are fuzzy now.
Right. So the reason why I bring up John Harbor is because John Harbor used to be one of the owners with his, I want to say, brother. I can never see the word brother, so I'm just only saying that loosely because I really don't know. For all I know, it could have been some sort of cousin, for all or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, what I find odd about this John Harbor, when you look into it, and I've only been able to find one newspaper article dating back from like October of hang on, I have it. I just want to make sure I get the right, quote date. Right. Oh, even worse. So September 30th, 1897. So, in a nutshell, I will try to do my best of this nutshell. But man, dude, after reading this, I feel like there were so many red flags here.
Yeah.
Because first off, John Harbor was 40 years old. He was a hunter. He was on a hunting trip with his brother and soon to be owner of the lumber business that he was selling this company to, which was coming out of Springfield, Massachusetts. The company went under the name Webster Lumber Company from Massachusetts. Anyway, long story short, so John Harry Harbor went with a Wilton A. Vial. Again, is that how you pronounce this guy's last name? Interesting last name, by the way. Anyway, John and this Wilton guy went out to go hunt, and as they did, apparently John was a little bit farther ahead than this Wilton guy. All of a sudden, I guess this Mr. Vile guy heard John scream out, "I've been shot," and ran back to grab Harry, and this Wilton guy and Harry went out to try to find this John. Well, they didn't find him that night, the following night. They ended up finding him the following morning at around like 11:30,
Mm-hmm.
and it looked like he had been dragged and placed into this brush with his head a little bit elevated, like somebody did this on purpose.
Yeah.
And a lot of people speculate that he probably was accidentally shot because of his movement, and it was possibly a fatal error, thinking it was like a deer movement. I'm like, I don't know. This sounds more suspicious because you got a guy that's buying this guy's business, and now he's with you hunting, and you just happen to walk a little bit from this guy, and he's supposedly hear you say, "I am shot." Like, I don't know. Just this whole thing is just weird.
Yeah. No, I didn't hear that one. So is it your theory that's kind of like an origin point for things, or what do you think there?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's more like origin points that's
Mhm.
setting up what kind of happened there.
Yeah.
Because I don't have this other article in front of me right now, but it's interesting. But there was another guy during the lumber company, but his name was called Henry McDowell.
Mm-hmm.
He supposedly was going insane to the point where like kind of like what happened with Paul Jefferson that they claimed, where they felt like Paul Jefferson was being to lured to the mountain by some strange force. Well, this guy almost had something similar to him, I guess, but he went crazy. He actually killed a guy during this lumber company with a rock, and he tried to escape, got caught, was trying to then be brought to a insane asylum here, which I've been trying to figure out which one it is, because it's just the one in Brattleboro, which wouldn't be too far from Bennington. His name should have been in the record, but because of him escaping the transit bus, to get him to the asylum anyway, he escaped anyway. So it's like I can't find his name in the record, even if he was supposed to have been getting transferred there anyway. However, I did hear that there was another asylum nearby too that he could have possibly was going to, but I almost felt like that was way too far away, and that was in Waterbury / Stowe.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I felt way too far away, but either way, there was some weird, mysterious thing going on in these woods for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, you can see why there's stories that have grown up around the place.
Oh, totally.
I mean, it invites them. I mean, just by existing, it's a weird spot. Like the ghost towns and all that, the history behind it alone would invite that kind of thing. And I do think there's strange things that have happened here. I just would like, like there's a part of me that wants to know, well, how did some of this stuff actually originate? Like, where did the man-eating rock story come from? Like, because it's that's the kind of thing where I want to know where that originated. Like, if we're going to claim this is a thing, but we can't give an explicit like origin point for it, then we probably shouldn't be claiming it's a thing. So I don't know. It's of all the movies we've made, like I said, this one really buggers the mind as to what is fact and what is fiction, because it's a weird conglomeration of all of it.
Ah, man, Seth, you're making me bite my tongue, but here we go, right? So anyway, so my friend Darsh did did the documentary review for you guys, since I felt like I shouldn't be the one reviewing it because I was in it, and I felt like if I were to review a documentary that I'm a part of, I feel like that's like a biased thing to do, and I
Mhm.
wanted like a unbiased thing. But I had placed notes into my original draft just in case I could not find anybody to help me back up a review to this. So, man, here we go again with the freaking man-eating rock. Stone, I mean, whatever. So, this man-eating stone, man, and you know what? There is a book where I found another reference to the man-eating stone again.
Mhm.
It's entitled "Haunted Vermont" by a Charles author. I don't, again, I do not have the author's name in front of me right at the moment.
Mhm.
But anyway, long story short, is so in the documentary is an interesting quote that Joe says,
Mhm.
and it's around 12 minutes and 30 seconds. And again, people, I am not, what I'm about to say is I'm really not trying to take a stab at Joe, but it just hear me out on this. I want you guys to see what I have here backed up
Mhm.
to 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 claim why I have this pet peeve. So anyway, around 12 minutes and 30 seconds again, Joseph Citro says something to the effect of, "I don't make anything up." So that struck me
Mhm.
just because I was just like, whoa, 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 whoa. Because if you guys were here in Vermont in June of 2025, let's go back 3 months. So that's now March 2025,
Mhm.
where he had did a an interview with Vermont Public website. Also, they did a podcast called Brave Little State Podcast. They have an episode there that's called like the Bennington Triangle. So anyway, uh there's a part in this write up and in the audio format of this podcast where this guy Howard is talking with Joseph, and he starts talking about the man-eating stone. Joe replies, and I quote, "I may or may not have made it up." So this is rather confusing and disappointing, as reality and fiction often collide, but rarely is made up because everything in the paranormal investigation industry worked on goodwill and good faith. So that's, and I'm just reading that paragraph from the review from our friend Darth Davis, because I did ask him if he doesn't like what I have for notes, please take out whatever. But I just wanted to share what I found interesting prior to this documentary of what
Mhm.
Joe has said. Another interesting thing I just want to share real quick is when was this? This would have been March 16th, 2022, when I had Steven Bissett on
Yeah.
for a chat. Um, Around our chat, around 16 minutes and 17 seconds, Steven says, and I quote, "We did make up one story in both books. There is one story that is completely fabricated." Now, I just want to put a pause on there for a minute. When we were talking about two separate books, one being the monster Vermont Monster Guide
Mhm.
and the original Vermont Ghost Guide. So
Mhm.
what he means by we did make up a story for both books, it's he talking about the Vermont Ghost Guide and the Vermont Monster Guide. I just wanted to clarify that
Mhm.
for others. Now, fast forward to an hour and 36 minutes and 5 seconds with our chat, with my chat with Steve. He once again says, "It's not the one Joe and I made out. I
Mhm.
won't tell you which story we made up."
Okay.
So that's where I'm like, why did you say that? Like, this is ruining your reputation. I feel like this is ruining this ruining something. It's like,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that it ruins anything so much as it calls into question, like it causes their audience to question what is fact and what is fiction. And I know Steve really well. Um,
yeah, I do
We
too.
we can, man. Steve conducted an interview with me that lasted years. Steve's got 80 plus thousand words written down of an interview we conducted over the course of like 4 years. Um,
Damn.
and I know his sense of humor, so I'm pretty sure I know how he was viewing this. But yeah, as far as like how anyone else is going to view it, I don't think it's going to be like, oh, this is a fun little treat when you're
Right.
trying to figure out what's fact and what's fiction. The
Yeah.
the other thing is it's interesting, I mean, if regardless of who created the story, it's interesting that the story has taken on a life of its own to the point that one of the guys, if not the guy, who sort of gets the credit for what would you say, like
The foundation of it.
yeah, or like at least getting it out into the public eye to this extent, doesn't even know where it came from.
Hmm.
Like that is a really fascinating thing. Some of that has to do with the fact that Joseph Citro is getting up there in years too.
Yes.
Um, but it doesn't, like, the whole thing for me as a storyteller really is an interesting study in how this kind of stuff, these kind of stories and these legends can take on a life of their own, uh, sometimes to the detriment of the story to begin with. It just calls, when you can't. But the other thing that bothers me about it too is that then it becomes this thing that people are saying, well, it's a Native American legend. Like, I don't know if
Right.
you've heard that, but that's a
Yes, I have.
common. People will be like, "Oh, this is an old Native American legend about this man-eating stone." It's like, really? Well, what tribe? Well, we don't know. Like, I don't. We don't know who
Yeah.
originated it.
Well, I think Jamie from Bennington Museum mentioned something like that. Like he talked to some tribe members, and they'd never heard of the story.
Right. Right. No, I wanted to get as much of that kind of thing into the movie as possible. Like,
No, that's great.
yeah, because that to me is the really interesting part of all of this, is like, well, what is the reality behind the legends that form the foundation of the Bennington Triangle to begin with?
Right.
Because a lot of the things connected to the Bennington Triangle, you could throw a rock in any forest and hit an area with a similar history, right? Like,
Right.
like you can. We were just talking before we went live about people being murdered and left in the woods. So we know
Yep.
that there's dead and missing people all over the country, and especially in our national forests and state forests and all that kind of stuff. But when you have this history of, like, well, there's man-eating rocks, and there's Glastonbury
Stone cairns
monster,
and
and
this
yeah,
and
yeah,
that.
all that
Yeah.
stuff. But and then you can't actually ascertain where those stories even come from. That's where it's like, well, how much of this is actually rooted in reality at all?
Right. And that's where I'm the guy now, where I like to find stuff where I can actually find the meat of the bone. Because if I
Mhm.
cannot find the meat of the bone, I don't really tend to look at it anymore, because it's just, I kind of just throw it into the whole, it's definitely urban or folklore at that point, because there's no proof to say, oh, well, this is where it came from. This is the stepping stone. But then again, look at uh, places where they had like these old, let's just say for the example, because I just mentioned the asylum, right? They have these old reports or whatever where it has all the patient information on it. But
Mhm.
then once you grab this information, right, and hand it off to somebody else, whatever happens now is left to them to decide, well, do they keep it or do they throw it away?
Mhm.
And I've seen and heard that happening. So to me, that kind of upsets me too, because it's like, well, that's history now gone if you just toss it,
Sure.
instead of just logging it, because we could have learned a lot more, I believe. But I do want to ask a few or bring up one thing that you had stated earlier, Seth, because I know you are currently on a time limit for this chat, unfortunately, because it's already getting interesting. And there's one thing that really caught my attention too with the Vermont edition, anyway, that I'd like to ask you anyway if you have time. But anyway, going back to the missing people real quick. You had mentioned when we were talking like you being an outsider, right? Well, I can't remember everybody right now of who was local and who wasn't, but I can share a few that I can remember off the top of my head. So Paula Weldon, right? Probably the most well-known case that you're going to hear about it anyway is everywhere.
Yeah.
She formed the Vermont State Police on July 1st, 1947, pretty much 7 months after she went missing. Anyway, she came from Connecticut to go to college to Bennington College.
Yeah.
So again, outsider.
Yeah.
As you would look at that. James E. Tedford, the guy who mysteriously vanished on the bus.
Yeah.
He was originally from New Hampshire before he moved to Vermont. Would you consider that to be outsider? I would think so, because if you're not technically born in Vermont, I would say you're an outsider, even though you moved to Vermont. But in that theory, I would say. Another interesting one is Paul Jepson. Paul Jepson, as far as I can tell, he might be the only local besides Mitty Rivers. Don't quote me on Mitty Rivers right now, because I think that's one that I can't remember if Mitty was local or not. But Frida Wanger, though, who was 53 when she went missing 2 weeks after Paul Jepson, she was from North Adams, Massachusetts. Yeah. So there definitely was some interesting aspect if you want to go into that rabbit hole of outsiders.
Yeah, it's important because people that are from an area, especially a mountainous area like Vermont is, mountainous, rugged, isolated in some spots in a state you would not expect to be isolated. When you're an outsider in those places, there's a lot about it that you just don't understand or know. And even if you have lived there for a while, most people would still consider you an outsider. I always think of my buddy Lance Holland, who's a writer down in North Carolina, and he's lived there now for like 30 some years in Bryson City. He's a local historian. He just wrote a new book about the Little Tennessee River. They still consider him an outsider there, and they don't. Not that they don't like him, but they have a hard time accepting that he's writing books about their history. And so as an outsider, coming in, especially when you're dealing with cases of people in the outdoors, there's a lot about that area that you got to learn from a lifetime spent there. That if you're, if you don't have that lifetime, it's probably doubly dangerous, for people that are in those woods.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So I just feel like that definitely helps tie into your comment about being an outsider. I just want to share that because for some reason I forget how I started to think about that, but I was finding out that this is where these people were coming from, was like Massachusetts, New Hampshire, whatever. And I was just like, that's weird. It seems to be all outsiders except for maybe Paul Jepson and maybe Mitty Rivers. Like I said, don't quote me about Mitty Rivers because I can't remember off the top of my head right now on that aspect. Anyway, the final thing that I guess for now, Seth, is for this documentary is it's out. For people wondering, it is out. It's available on Apple TV, Amazon Prime, Google Play, YouTube Movies. And if you want your very own copy of it, you go to smalltownmonsters.com and you can get your DVD and Blu-ray there. So there's that.
As of today, it's actually free on Amazon Prime. So like it just hit Amazon Prime subscription. So if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, it's actually free right now. And it goes up on Tubi in, I want to say August. I think it's August.
Yeah, that's what I think I heard.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, my last question for you tonight, Seth, like I said, because of the time restraint thing, but it's been a fun chat anyway, of hearing some of the behind the scenes with you. Anyway, it's a little bit different this time around. But one thing that really caught my attention with your Vermont edition episode is originally, now this is where I guess I'm trying to figure out how much you're going to remember now,
Yeah.
is originally the idea what you wanted to make like from the beyond high strangeness in the Bennington Triangle, kind of similar to Invasion
It's
of
supposed to be a
Chestnut.
spiritual sequel. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
supposed to
yeah,
be a spiritual sequel.
yeah. So I guess like, what were you trying to make it as to what it ended up, coming to be? I guess I know you're saying spiritual sequel, but
Well, I
yeah.
mean, the goal was, so Invasion is it's an anthology movie that's disguised as a traditional early STM movie.
Hmm.
But if you really look at it, it has more in common with like American Werewolves, where it's a series of stories, kind of short stories that are only connected by this geographic location. So originally that was what we wanted to do with this. And we still do to some extent. Like it's still kind of structured similarly. Um, but like with any story, it kind of has its own style that it wants to be told using. Like it's funny how that works. Like these things take on a life of their own. They don't. Sometimes they work the way you think they're going to work, and sometimes they don't at all, and you end up doing something completely different. This is somewhere in between. It's not. It's not what I pictured necessarily. I pictured much more of like hardcore recreations and fun, kind of like a fun vibe to it, and it's got a little bit of fun to it. But I think it leans more heavily into an examination of storytelling and folklore than what I would have anticipated in the early days. So it was more of like, I think what changed the most is just the style of the movie. Santino also edits completely different from me, so it's got a different, it just has its own unique vibe based on who edited it. But mostly it just comes down to we didn't have UFO witnesses, so you're gonna miss out on that vibe.
Yeah.
The other thing is that the missing people aspect of it just made it feel wrong to do that kind of like straightforward neon 80s silly kind of vibe that Chestnut Ridge has. And that was mostly on my end, in the edit, looking at it and being like, this was a child that went missing in the woods. Like this isn't. I can't really see myself running a synth under that, and with neon lights and stuff like what we would have done with Chestnut Ridge. And so it just informs the entire vibe of it. I think the other big thing was the interview we did with Dr. Bob, the school teacher who actually got lost on the mountain. Like that, his interview really changed the entire tone of the film for me. And the interesting thing too about Dr. Bob is, like, candidly, he was very open about the fact that he doesn't necessarily think anything that happened to him was paranormal. That he thinks, like it was, and it wasn't malevolent. He didn't feel like he was in a scary situation, and I thought that was very unique. He felt very close to God, is what he told me when he was out there. Like he was taken care of, like he was being watched over.
Almost like the oh my god, what do they call that? The like you just walk out into nature and you just kind of open up yourself up to the world kind of thing.
Also, I want to mention the fact that he did some of the music in the movie.
Yes, he did,
and that's such a cool aspect to the whole thing for me.
Yeah, I thought that was real cool, and I love that you were able to find him, because I think when that question came up when I was getting recorded, I was like, yeah, actually, I think there was like a couple people, and I think I had to look at my notes because I was just like trying to remember everything because obviously when you feel like you're unprepared like I was for the other question because you don't really know what else is going to be said besides the missing people, it's like you know,
Yeah.
like I don't know if I said something about like the cows, like UFOs and cows, but I remember like my dad was talking to me a long time ago when he was still alive about like a UFO that was carrying a cow away, and I was just like, that's like at the joke, kind of like, okay, Dad, stop watching too much sci-fi, like
Yeah.
but then you hear about um like the farm down south that had all his cows get electrocuted to death and stuff like that. So it's just like Jesus, like maybe there was something to this, like
Yeah.
that's why I kind of wish my dad was still around so I could like actually go back to pick his brain,
Well, that's
especially.
why, I mean, it's just another example of why it's so important to document everything, not just what we know of the sort of like the mundane history of these places, but the weird history as well.
Mhm.
Because you otherwise you end up in this situation we're in, where we have no idea where half these stories originated. Because
Right.
the people that originated them are either not here, or they don't want to open up about the fact that they're the ones that made it up.
Well, that's the problem. Like with my childhood. My childhood wasn't the greatest, so there were definitely some bad moments. But uh, can share that my dad was interested in the paranormal field. That's why like when he passed away, I made sure to grab his book from Paul Bartholomew called Monsters of the Northwood. And
Mhm.
inside that book, he actually had the old newspaper clipping that's entitled "Is There Vermont Bigfoot?" So I kept that and framed it because that
Mhm.
was obviously my dad seeking into it, but kind of like with West Rutland. There used to be a private camp there that my dad used to go to with my mother and stuff, and I actually just found out from my mom like where it used to reside on and stuff like that because the owner that was uh there by the time my father and my mother went, he's no longer alive, and I'm just like, oh great, I wonder who's here now, if I can even reach out and be like, hey, can I like see this old camp that I used to come to back when my dad used to bring me. No, yes, so it kind of sucked because my dad believed something was watching him and his folks there when they were at that camp for like whatever they were doing.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I'm not trying to say Bigfoot, but I mean, it sounds like it because there was like a big dark silhouette of something standing by this tree that you find like on your sidewalk, like a crab apple or whatever, but it was as tall as that tree.
Mhm.
Again, that just goes to show I wish he was still around so I could actually, you know,
Yeah.
um, talk to him more about it, but he passed away in 2003, so that's what sucked about everything.
Yeah.
um, but yeah. But Seth, I don't want to keep you anymore. But is there anything I did not get a chance to let you like, I guess, cover with me, or no?
No, I mean, I think it's a story worth telling. I mean, even if it's difficult to ascertain what fact and fiction are,
Yeah.
it's a story worth telling, and it's one that I think there's plenty to explore. Like if anything, we just opened a door, hopefully for someone to really do a deep dive into it, because there's only so much you can do in an hour and 10-minute movie, and there's a lot more to be covered in this story. So especially like you up in that area, go cover it, like go figure it out, because it needs to be, at some point it needs to be figured out.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, maybe when my car gets better and stuff, and when it's not raining and 50 degrees to 70 or
Yeah.
80, whatever, maybe I can do that because I
Yeah.
do want to go back to the hidden graveyard that's there anyway. So yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. But all right, Seth. Well, and again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And for everybody else, again, so From the Beyond High Strangeness in the Bennington Triangle is available now. All the links will be below for the episode description. And Steph, it's a pleasure. And I guess until next time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And for everybody else, thank you. And, if you have anything interesting, please reach out and we would love to discuss it with you. And until next time, everybody, just keep your eyes open because you just never know what the hell is going to jump out in front of you.